Hey everyone, I'm Carly, Singer Educator, and today I'm joined by one of our very own software project managers, Lee, to share with you some exciting details about a new integration we have coming up.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Carly, and hello everyone. I am so excited to be able to introduce our latest product integration, which is the mySewnet quilting software and the mySewnet crafting software coming together to make creating a quilt easier than ever.
That's right, and if you're new here, this is a SINGER Momento. This is our craft cutting machine that works in conjunction with our crafting software, allowing you to cut a variety of materials, including fabrics. And in December, we launched our quilting software, which allows you to completely design a quilt of your liking, depending on whatever size and design you want, and it provides step-by-step instructions and also all of the measurement details. And we're super excited to tell you that now you can use the quilting software and the crafting software together.
That's right, mySewnet quilting and the SINGER Momento craft cutting machine are now fully integrated. And what that integration means is that you can design your entire quilt in the quilting software and then send all the pieces to SINGER Momento to cut out. It's that easy. There's no more cutting by hand or rotary cutters required. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of the process. And so with this integration, it's faster, easier, and way more accurate to cut all these pieces. So if you're new to quilting and have been thinking about giving it a shot, this will make it really easy for you. Or if you're already an experienced quilter, this is gonna save you a lot of time.
That's right, this is a complete game changer. Let me tell you, there's nothing else in the quilting world quite like this. And let me say, as someone who's new to quilting myself, honestly, cutting out all those shapes, doing the measuring, that was the part I dreaded the most. And with this new integration, I'm obsessed with quilting and I've been making way more quilt blocks than ever before.
Oh, wow. So as someone who helped develop these features, that makes me so happy to hear this. So, as you said, you've been experimenting and playing around making quilt blocks.
Sure have.
So, do we have some projects we can work on together today?
Yeah, so to start, I first want to kind of show off this denim jacket that I'm wearing. So if you notice the quilt block on the back, I also
Nice.
made this, as well as check out this amazing quilt, this large quilt back here,
Oh, wow.
and this denim chair. These were all designed right within the quilting software and cut out using the Momento.
I love it. That's amazing, and they really turned out so well. Now tell me about these quilt blocks that I see on the table here. Tell me about this one.
Yeah, so I know you mentioned your 11-year daughter that these are her favorite colors. So I went ahead and I made a quilt block using her favorite colors. I designed this within the quilting software, choosing
amazing.
these colors and this specific block. And then I cut it out on the Memento and I turned it into a little bag. And then I know you said that, you know, she loves hanging out with your dog. So I made
Yes,
a
she
matching
does.
quilt block that I turned into a dog bandana. But to take it a step further, you know, I made her a matching hat. So now they can
Oh
go to
my
the dog
goodness.
park, have this little matching quilt block thing.
Matchy.
But this kind of shows that you can change up the size of your quilt block. If you want to make a large quilt with large blocks or a super small one, this is the smallest size you can cut on the Memento. But all these tiny shapes, you know, these are hard to cut by hand.
Yeah.
These are super accurate, and the Memento cut them all to size for me.
Oh, that's incredible, and they turned out so well.
So Lee, if someone's new to this and they want to just get started, where do we start?
It's a great question. So the first step is to make sure you have the latest mySewnet software. And to get this, you'll go to mysewnet.com, and at the top of the page, there will be a menu for quilting. And that's where you can download the mySewnet quilting software. And we'll also drop a link to the quilting software in the video description here. And so today, I'm gonna demonstrate how to make this quilt and send it to Momento on a Mac machine with our Mac software. But the software is also available on your Windows PC or laptop, and we even have it for your iPad or your Android tablet. All right, so once you have logged in with your mySewnet account details, you land on the home screen. And as you can see here, we have a number of different options for you to design and create with. What we're gonna focus on today, of course, is our quilting module. So I'm gonna go right into that. I'll click the quilting module. And that takes us to our home screen. And on the home screen, you have the option to start a new project. You have resources across the middle here, which help you with step-by-step guides for how to design your quilt, how to cut out the pieces, and then how to put it together. And then if you've been working on any projects recently, that's at the bottom is where they'll show up.
Okay, so what's the difference between a sample quilt project and a preset quilt project?
Yeah, so the difference is that in the sample quilt project, I'll pull that open here, we've created a number of different projects for you that you can then open fully customize, change the colors, change the shapes. So if you're newer to quilting and you want to start from something that's already been created, this is a great option. And again, as I said, there's fully customizable within any of these samples here.
Okay, so how would I go to design a quilt of itself that I want to make, like the bag that I did?
So if you want to start from
Basically from scratch?
From scratch, you can open the preset quilt layouts. And this is where we have layouts from a 1x1 all the way down to, as you can see, a 4x8 here, that choosing any one of these will then allow you to fully customize the pattern or design of the block or blocks, change the colors as well. And so this is another way where you can customize your quilt. It's just a different starting point.
Okay, so for the bag, I did a 1x1 because I just made one block for that. So why don't we go ahead and do that today?
Sure. Open up a 1x1 here. And then this is going to open up on our canvas. And so this is the primary view you'll see when designing your quilt block. And this first menu here in the top right shows you the size of the quilt block, and you can adjust this using the plus or minus, or you can even just enter a value right here. And I do want to say that the size you see here, 16 inches, that includes a 2-inch border on either side of the quilt. So in reality, this quilt block right now is 12 inches by 12 inches because there's a 2-inch border around the whole quilt block square itself.
Got it. So right now it's just a blank square. How do I pick my design and change the colors?
Great question. So we're going to go to this next tab, which is for designing the quilt blocks themselves. As you can see, we have one block here. It's blue. And by clicking this edit button, I can change the design of that specific quilt block to any one of these.
Oh, okay. Right. Well, I use the friendship star on mine, so let's go ahead and recreate that.
Okay. So now we're going to swap out that plain block for the friendship star. You can see it completely replaced it. And if you wanted to change the colors, you would then click on this tab, and it shows you all the colors of your current block design right here. And then you can go in and change each one of these. So I noticed that on the quilt, the bag and the quilt block you designed for my daughter, there are different colors. So which colors did you choose?
So let's start with the lime green. That's the center square, as well as the outside triangles.
Okay. So because the center square is white, then we're going to click on white and edit that color. And you can see a variety of colors we have available here. We will choose lime green, and that's going to replace all the white squares now with lime green. That's so easy, right?
Then let's see, there's white as these side triangles.
These right here?
Yes.
Got it. So the blue pastel color will become white. So we'll change that to white. Okay.
And then the purple is these navy blue ones.
Okay. So we'll change navy blue to purple so we can recreate the quilt block that you made for the projects that we saw earlier.
Awesome.
Does that look right?
Yeah, that looks
That's great.
just like...
I mean, that took all of maybe 30 seconds to change the quilt block design and the colors. And so that's just one of the things I love about this software, because it makes it so easy just to play around. You can choose any of the designs, you can change them out, swap them out, you can change the colors. It really gives you the ability just to create and explore and find something that you really like and really want to make.
All right, so now that we have the design we want, where do we go to send it to the crafting?
Yeah, so that's going to be on this far right tab over here, which is output. And when you click on this tab, first of all, you're going to choose a seam allowance here. So whether you want 1/4 inch or 3/8 inch, you get to choose that using plus or minus, or just entering the value right there. And then once you've set the seam allowance, you're going to make the quilt. So we'll click on this button, and the seam allowance value that you chose will carry through into the measurements and dimensions that you'll see here on the next couple screens. So now that we're on the quilt project overview screen, it shows us the friendship star block, which is only one block right here. It shows the size. And then if I click on some of these other tabs across the top, you can see, let's click on the right here. This shows you how all the pieces fit together. So the individual...
Kind of the breakdown of all of the shapes.
That's great. Yeah, the breakdown of the shapes, exactly. So the individual shapes, and then coming together, how they form the block. And then if you had more than one block, this would show you how the blocks form rows, and then how it all fits together. And then if you were cutting this out by hand, I just want to show you that this yardage tab shows you exactly how much fabric you'll need per color and per shape.
Awesome.
We'll scroll down here. Again, if you're cutting this out by hand, but since we're not cutting it out by hand, let's go back to this screen. And I want to say one last thing. We do have instructions here for how to put the block and the pieces together, but we'll come back to that after we've cut the pieces out of them. So I'm going to hit send to crafting. All right, so on this page, you're going to select which cutting mat you're going to use for your project. And because we're only cutting out one quilt block, that will all fit on the 12 by 24 landscape mat, which does come with the Momento. If I was cutting out, say, a full quilt or a lot of different quilt blocks, I might want to choose the 24 by 24 cutting mat size, because that means more pieces will fit onto the cutting mat, so you'll have fewer batches to run through Momento. So we're choosing 12 by 24 cutting mat. And if I open this tab, this shows me all the pieces and colors that we'll cut out and confirms that they will all fit on this cutting mat. And once these details look good, I'm going to hit next. And on this final screen before it goes to the crafting software, this shows you by color how much material you will need to cut all these shapes out.
So each of these colors right here represents a mat with selected fabric, right?
That's exactly right. And so at the top it'll say total batches is 4, which means you'll have 4 different cutting mats to send through Momento. Awesome. And once this looks good, then we're going to hit send.
I love this part. It kind of switches over.
Yeah, that is nice. And it ends up in the crafting software now in one of the final steps before cutting it out. So this should look familiar to the last screen. We have the shapes and colors broken out on the different cutting mats. We have 4 total batches here, and you can see where they all fit onto the cutting mats.
And I want to say this part is nice because if you're using some scraps to make like a smaller block, you can see and kind of gauge on the mat exactly, like say I have just one smaller piece of fabric, I'll know that I'll have enough before I load it into the machine.
That's a great point. That's right. And so in the top right here, you can select a different material. If you're not using quilting cotton, maybe it's denim or maybe it's another medium or heavy fabric. But you have options here to select which material you're going to use. And that's important because later on we provide default recommended force settings for cutting based on the material that you've selected in this step.
So, all right, we have our layout. So first we're going to load purple onto our mat. And before we load these mats to the machine, we just want to use a brayer and flatten it out really good so there's no air bubbles or anything like that.
That's right, and these mats are sticky, so your fabric will stick to the mat, but it is a best practice to get as flat as possible so that it does not move while cutting. All right, so now that we have our material loaded onto our first cutting mat, I'm going to click Next, and this screen tells us that we need to load the cutting mat into Momento.
And first we're going to make sure that our pinch wheels are up, and we're going to slide it up just a little bit and load it in, then lock it back into place, and make sure that my rotary cutter is properly inserted. And now we're ready to load the mat.
And now that our mat is loaded, we can continue to the next screen. And on this screen, you're going to make the final adjustments to your force and speed settings. And the material type you selected earlier determines the force that we recommend for this material. So you can make any adjustments here, and then we're going to hit continue to send it to Momento. And so right now, while it's cutting out, you could be doing a number of other things. You could be loading your next cutting mat with material. You could go take a coffee break. You can just sit back and let Momento cut the pieces out and know that it's going to cut them out so accurately and a lot more quickly than you could by hand.
And if you had multiple mats, you could get started, load your next mat and just pop that one in, or when this is done, take off the fabric and then load your next color. Now that it's all cut, we're gonna take out the mat and we're gonna remove all the excess fabric. You can see how easy this just pulls right on up. And then you can take a tool and you're gonna pull up each shape, which you wanna make sure when you remove the triangles, you do it away from the bias side.
Oh, look at how cleanly that cut out.
Now that your first mat is done and you're on to the next color, it's going to automatically go back to the screen and show you the next color to load and prepare the next mat.
That's right. All right, so now that our pieces have finished cutting out, let's go back to the quilting module and find the instructions for how to put this block together. So we're going to go to the quilt map for starters, and this is where you can see the colorful overview of how all these pieces are supposed to fit together initially.
And now that we have our shapes all laid out, we have the visual of what our block's gonna look like, let's go back to those instructions so I know where to begin with the sewing process.
Yeah, okay. We're going to head back to the instructions tab, and then over on this side you see it clearly indicating block instructions. And this is going to give you the visual of how each piece comes together initially.
So each arrow to each arrow of the shape is where you're gonna begin sewing.
That's right. And then once you have a couple of the shapes pieced together, then you can follow the arrows to start putting the larger shapes together. And then you continue that process until you end up with rows. And then the last thing to do is put those rows together into the block itself.
And you're on your way to making a quilt. That was super easy and life-changing.
Mm-hmm.
If you're an experienced quilter or just getting started, or maybe you've been on the fence about getting a memento, now is the perfect time to dive in because this new integration is absolutely incredible.